And the very warmest of welcomes to everybody out there in Radio Land. That makes me sound old-fashioned, doesn't it, Gene? Out there in Radio Land.
Radio and podcast land.
Podcast land. No, that's my childhood. It's reverting to the 60s and the 70s. Everybody out there in those days it was TV land. Anyway, we are glad you have tuned in, whether it's tuned in. See how ancient I am? Now we're tuning in. Does anybody remember our daughter just discovered radio?
Yes.
That's the weirdest thing to me. It's like
I know.
you can just. Our youngest daughter. She was amazed. She was laying on her bed with this little radio, little transistor radio. Like maybe there's no transistors in there anymore. Whatever. She's got a little radio, and she's like, you can just tune the dial and find stations, and everyone in town is listening to the same thing as you. And her mind was blown by the radio dial. Yeah. Well, wherever you happen to be listening, my name is Shawn Boonstra, and you've just tuned in or podcast. What do you call it when you podcast in? You've just downloaded Disclosure, the voice of prophecy's flagship broadcast /podcast /whatever. Now, if you happen to like the supernatural, if you find things like angels and demons fascinating, today's episode might be tailor-made for you because our subject today, Jean, drum roll, please.
The truth about angels.
No, you're supposed to do the drum roll.
Oh.
You're supposed to do the drum roll. Yeah,
You're
that is
right.
the topic, and my wife blew
Drum
it.
roll.
Yeah.
There.
No, the subject is the truth about angels, and you destroyed my big moment.
Sorry.
It's okay. I will stay married to you.
That's good.
Yeah, that won't be the thing that finishes us off.
That's not the marriage killer
No,
after 25 years?
The subject is the truth about angels. In studio today is my lovely wife, who's horrible at drum rolls, but really good at everything else, Jean. Patient woman who has suffered and endured more than a quarter of a century living under the same roof as me, which is no easy feat. In fact, speaking about angels, that might give you angel status, just living with me for 25 plus years.
I don't think so.
I don't know. You've got the patience of an angel.
I don't know.
Actually, we don't have a verse anywhere in the Bible that says angels are patient. You wonder, are there impatient angels?
Maybe.
Are there angels who's like, I want an assignment now?
I don't picture it because the angels are in heaven, so I don't think that we get impatient in
Well,
heaven.
impatience isn't necessarily a sin, is it? I don't know. Amanda's in the studio taking pictures of us. Let me ask her, is impatience a sin? No, she doesn't know.
I don't know.
Oh.
Maybe it's what causes you to be impatient. That's the sin rather than the impatience as a response.
Yeah, I'm impatient to get to heaven. I want to go now.
Yeah.
Is that a sin?
No.
No. I'm impatient for my kids to take the trash out. Is that a sin?
No, probably not.
No,
if you ask them to do it.
I'm impatient for them to do the dishes. Do you remember the time I actually had to leave a note on the counter with a dish rag and a jar of soap? And it was like, I put the soap on a piece of paper with an arrow to it that said, this is dish soap. And
Use
then,
it.
and this is a dish rag. Wet the dishes, wash them off with this, dry them. It's like, I'm leaving detailed instructions.
Yeah, that was a few years ago, though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get to angels. I don't know if you remember, but coming out of the 1980s and 1990s, angels were all the rage on TV. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I definitely remember
Yeah.
that.
We had Michael Landon, who was Little Joe originally. And then
Charles Ingalls.
Oh, he was Charles
Little
Ingalls.
House on the Prairie.
Yeah. Michael Landon's Highway to Heaven started in 1984 when I was, I was older than I wanted to.
Elementary school student?
No,
Should we leave it at that?
I don't want to admit how old I actually was in 84. But 84, I was 15.
Yeah,
I was
you
15
were,
years
weren't
old.
you?
So Highway to Heaven. And it wasn't too long after that we lost Michael Landon. He was one of the good guys, I think. And,
I think so.
Yeah, the show ran till 1989, and he played as an angel in that show who loses his wings.
Oh, that's right.
Right? And so he's on probation. I mean, theologically, it's a train wreck.
Yeah.
Theologically, it's not great. But it was a decent, clean show, and he had to prove himself. He loses his wings. He has to prove himself by helping people on earth. It's kind of an old cliche.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Right. So that was that. And, of course, we had Roma Downey.
Touched by an Angel.
Touched by an
that
Angel,
program.
right? 1994. Almost 10 years. Well, that is 10 years later. Almost 10 years later when I was 25. I was 25 in 19... Amanda, how old were you in 1994? I'm just looking. She was one. I'm an ancient relic.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm right behind you, so I shouldn't say much.
All right, Roma Downey, Touched by an Angel. Incredibly popular. Probably, that has a lot to do with just who Roma Downey is. She's just delightful. I mean, how do you not like Roma Downey? In that show, she plays an angel who's been promoted from the heavenly choir to what is called the Search and Rescue Division of Heaven. And then she gets promoted again to casework, heavenly casework, in which she helps individual people solve problems and recover their faith. Remember that? At the end of the show, she would reveal to her
she was
case.
an angel.
Yeah, and then they would backlight her. And
I
she would
always remember that her hair would glow.
Right. They'd put a light bulb behind her head and make sort of a halo appearance.
Yeah.
And,
Good production effect.
Yeah.
It really looked kind of neat.
Yeah.
I remember both of those shows. And of course, they were good entertainment for the most part. You know, we think of those programs as being family friendly.
Yep.
I think we have to give the producers some credit for producing shows that were definitely a cut above some of the entertainment that's so prevalent on TV, not only in the 80s and 90s, but to this day.
Like the A-Team.
Like the A-Team.
No, the A-Team was good. They were kind of angels too, weren't they? Riding around, solving cases, shooting stuff up.
Yeah, I don't think they were angels.
All right,
I don't think the
it was
A&A
a cut
team
above.
was
It
for
was
angels.
they were the angel team.
No, I don't think so.
All right, it was a cut above the A-Team.
Definitely. But as far as depicting angels and what they do, those programs fell short of the mark because they seem to be largely based on popular understandings, or maybe misunderstandings is the right word, instead of on any kind of real biblical foundation. So today, Shawn, why don't you take us to the Bible itself so that we can actually unpack what it says?
Well, am I ever glad you asked me to do that? Because by some
ready?
strange coincidence, I may have just prepped that subject for today's show. All right, where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with the basics. A lot of popular books and TV shows describe angels as the spirits of dead people. So let's tackle that idea first. Is that really, Shawn, what the Bible teaches?
Well, it's an idea that you hear a lot because I think it makes some people feel really good. I mean, I see stickers or decals on car windows, Johnny got his wings, and it's sad. They've lost somebody and Johnny got, but if we want to be biblical, no. No, it's not. There is nothing in the Bible that indicates that people become angels when they go to heaven. Now, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. That doesn't mean that people can't be angels because the word angel is used in more than one sense throughout the Bible. So on the one hand, you've got this species of created being known as angels. Those are the ones with wings that visit the earth and so on. But there is another sense that the Bible uses that word in. In the New Testament, the word angel is a rough approximation of a Greek word, and that word is agolos. Angel comes from agolos, and agolos simply means messenger. So in that sense, if you're a messenger with a message from God, you can be described as an angel. It doesn't make you a heavenly being, but you are a messenger with a message from God. And so the authors of the Bible apply the word angel to those kinds of people. Very, very occasionally, but it does happen.
Okay. Can you give us an example?
Yeah, sure. I knew you'd ask for an example because I put that in your show notes.
Yes,
Please
you
ask
did.
Shawn for an example. Yeah. In the opening chapters of the book of Revelation, you've got this vision of Jesus. John sees Jesus as he's on Patmos, and Jesus is dressed like a high priest. He's standing among the seven candlesticks. And in Revelation 1 and verse 20, it says, Jesus is holding 7 stars in his hands, and it says that the 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches.
Right.
So what are the 7 churches? In chapters 2 and 3 of the book of Revelation, you get special messages from Jesus addressed to the angels of 7 churches, very real churches of the first century located in Asia Minor, or modern-day Turkey. Yeah. And while I don't doubt that heavenly angels probably visited those congregations like they probably still visit congregations today, the sense of the word angel in Revelation chapters 2 and 3 is that, well, it's addressed more likely to the pastor or the head elder or the leader of that congregation. They were messengers of the gospel, and so they're referred to as angels. They function as messengers.
Okay. But they're not actually heavenly beings, but human beings who are filling a similar role, which tells us something about what heavenly angels do too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because we find heavenly angels playing the role of messenger all through the Bible.
Yeah, we do. So, for an example, it's an angel who delivers messages to the prophet Daniel. The same angel, Gabriel, tells Mary that she's going to give birth to Jesus. Gabriel, it's actually Gavriel in the original language, which means warrior of God. But Gabriel is an angel who specifically delivers messages from heaven to somebody here on earth.
And when Jesus is born, an entire choir of angels shows up in the night sky to tell the shepherd that Messiah has finally arrived. I love that story. But as far as different types of created beings go, the Bible does draw a sharp distinction between human beings and heavenly angels, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. There is no crossover. Angels are angels, if we want to go sort of what is an angel rather than the function of an angel. Function of an angel is a messenger, so we can be called angels in that case. But if you want to talk about species of created being, angels and human beings don't cross over. In fact, the Bible tells us human beings are created at a lower tier than angels are. Now, modern people don't like that. We don't like hierarchies. No, we can't be below anybody else. Just on a sidebar, we should probably be slow to throw out hierarchies. They've served our race very well for thousands of years, and we want to dismantle it and have everybody at an equal level playing field and so on in this world. But hierarchies are in the Bible. God has a hierarchy, and angels are placed above human beings. Look at what the psalmist wrote in Psalm 8 and verse 4. Okay. Psalm 8, verse 4. What is man that you are mindful of him? So here the psalmist is astonished that God pays attention to measly little human beings here on this, the tiny blue dot, basically, this planet. Right. What is man that you are mindful of him, and the son of man that you visit him? Verse 5. For you have made him, that's human beings, man, you have made him a little lower than the angels, and you have crowned him with glory and honor. So there's nothing demeaning about our status in God's universe. We're created below angels, but we're crowned with glory and honor, and the Bible says we're made in God's image. But at the same time, we are created lower than the angels. There's a distinction between the two species. Angels are created at a different tier in God's universe. And then verse 6 tells us there's actually something below us. You have made him to have dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet. Here in this creation, everything else is under our feet, under our dominion. So human beings are created lower than angels, and animals created lower than us. Yeah.
Now, I know that thought can irritate some people because they don't accept that human beings have a higher status in God's order than the animals. And sometimes it almost seems, Shawn, like they think that animals ought to have a higher status than we do.
We care more about whether or not a bunch of garter snakes crossing the highway make it than we do about people sometimes, it seems.
It does seem that way sometimes. But if we read the opening chapters of Genesis, it makes it pretty obvious. It says that we were given dominion over the rest of the earth. So sort of like vice regents with God.
Yeah, property managers.
Yeah.
We were made as property.
Thinking about
now, that doesn't give us the right to abuse animals or treat them poorly because they are God's creatures. And I think a lot of the resentment that I hear from animal rights people over the way Christians view stewardship over the planet stems from what people have done since sin came into the picture, since we kind of warped God's original order. So what I see some people doing today is they blame Christian thinking for the damage we've done to the planet since sin was introduced into the picture. But before sin, there was no such damage. You don't see Adam and Eve dumping toxins into the river. You don't see Adam and Eve running abusive puppy mills. You don't see them treating animals cruelly. Those are human inventions. Those are not God's idea. That comes in after the sin. I hear the music, which tells me that you and I are at a lower tier than the people in the control room. They're telling us it is time for a break. And so I will take that command on high, the message, the angelic message from the control room. We'll be back right after this. Take note of these important announcements from the good people at the Voice of Prophecy, and we'll be right back with more of the truth about angels.
Are you searching for answers to life's toughest questions like, where is God when we suffer? Can I find real happiness? Or is there any hope for our chaotic world? The Discover Bible Guides will help you find the answers you're looking for. Visit us at BibleStudies.com or give us a call at 888-456-7933 for your free Discover Bible Guides. Study online on our secure website or have the free guides mailed right to your home. There is never a cost or obligation. The Discover Bible Guides are our free gift to you. Find answers in guides like, Does My Life Really Matter to God? And A Second Chance at Life. You'll find answers to the things that matter most to you in each of the 26 Discover Bible Guides. Visit BibleStudies.com and begin your journey today to discover answers to life's deepest questions.
And we are back from the break. I was spending the break sympathizing with my wife, who had a blood draw early this morning. How many vials of blood did they take out?
I think they took 6.
6 pints?
No,
because you only have like
vials.
4, I think, and then there's like one more pint hidden in your brain.
No, I did make a joke with her, though, that I was going to go home dry, and she just laughed. I'm sure she hears that all the time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Did you have grape juice this morning?
No.
Then it must have been blood.
It must have been.
So they drew 6 vials?
Yeah, the little things they stick on the end.
Oh, that's not so bad.
Anyway,
I was wondering why you were blacking out during the break.
I was able to walk out of the lab and get into my car and drive home just fine. So
they let you
I think
drive
it's okay.
after that. Huh. Anyway, all right, let's get back to the show. I'm trying to figure out, how much is in a vial of blood?
I don't know. I think it looks like more than what it is because it's very narrow, the little tube, but you just see it. And I don't usually watch, but I did watch this morning.
You do look paler than usual.
Do I?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like
there you go.
something's
that explains
missing.
Everything, right?
Right. So when they take blood, like your head is pale, but your arms are still pink. It's kind of like a thermometer. Your blood level goes down.
It drops from the top down.
It drops from the top and goes down. And this is good science brought to you by the people of Disclosure.
Excellent
Voice
science.
of Prophecy, yeah. Well, it should work that way, shouldn't it?
I don't think so.
You can see how much blood somebody has. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
We're talking about angels, and we were talking about hierarchies and the fact that human beings are created a little lower than the angels, and then human beings were given dominion over the planet. Of course, we took that dominion that God gave us. We promptly handed it over to a fallen angel, the serpent, in the book of Genesis, who then proceeded to teach human beings to despise God's creation. Why? Well, because creation is a testament to God's goodness. Revelation 4, verse 11 tells us that the reason God is worthy of worship is because he created this universe. So this world is supposed to display God's majesty, his love, his perfect character. So, of course, fallen angels would want human beings to distort that picture of God and damage the creation, essentially wipe out the remaining fingerprints of God that are still there on creation. But in the very beginning, let's go back to the very beginning, we were placed above the animals and angels were placed above us, which tells us angels and humans are 2 different things. We do not become angels when we die. In fact, Job 38, verse 7, one of my favorite passages in the Bible because Job has been complaining for 37 chapters, and then God says, hey, now I got some questions for you. And I know I would wither if God had some questions for me.
Yes.
Right. But there's a verse there that says that the morning stars sang for joy at the sight of creation. Those are angels. Stars are often used as a symbol for angels. They were singing, rejoicing that God had made this world. And that tells me they were already in place the day human beings arrived on the scene because they're celebrating creation.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Angels and
Witnesses.
people, 2 different things, completely different things, although you are still my angel.
Well, I'll take that. Thank you.
Even though, your head is pale. It's coming up though. I've noticed,
See the
pink is all the
rising?
way, the pink is all the way up to the bottom of your nose now.
Well,
I think
good.
you're making more blood.
I may survive the day then.
Yeah.
That's good. Talking about angels and humans, if we're different species created at different times, that would also mean that people don't become angels when they die.
Right.
That kind of thinking, it really grew out of some of the misconceptions that we developed during the medieval period of Christian history. Still popular, though, today in movies and books, but biblically speaking, just not accurate.
Not true at all, not biblical.
Yeah. So now that we've sort of established that angels are their own created order, what else do we know about them, Shawn?
Well, I don't even know
certain?
I don't know where we should begin. We probably need 18 hours to go through the whole Bible and see what it says about angels. But
give us the highlights.
Yeah, let me start by putting some biblical passages on the table. Let's see what we can figure out. Let's go with the judgment scene of Daniel chapter 7. This is one of my favorite passages in the Bible. Daniel 7, verse 9. I watched till thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days was seated. So God's on his throne. His garment was white as snow. The hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame, its wheels a burning fire. Verse 10. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. 1,000 thousands ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. So Here we've got two things. First of all, it tells us angels are there to participate in the process of judgment. We know biblically that they're interested in what's going on here in this world. They're interested in what's happening in those books. 1 Peter 1 and verse 12 tells us that angels actually desire to study the plan of redemption for human beings. But the second thing we've got here is how many angels there actually are. It says 10,000 times 10,000 that appear before the judgment seat, which would be, 100 million angels. It's a lot of angels.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of
angels.
It's like 3 times the population of Canada.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, if you put it
if
that
Canada
way.
was full of angels and you did that 3 times, that's how many you would have.
That's how many angels.
Yeah. You're the angel from Canada.
Oh.
See, I'm scoring points today.
You are.
Yeah.
Keep it up. Keep it
Yeah.
going. I'm not
Yeah.
complaining.
So 10,000 times 10,000.
Well, now, it doesn't actually say that these are angels,
Yeah, you're
even
right.
though the context sort of makes that obvious. So do we have any corroborating evidence somewhere else
Right.
in the
The
Bible?
word angel isn't used here, but
Right.
yeah, we do. Take a look at Revelation chapter 5. You've got a similar scene. You're in the throne room again. And there's only a handful of these scenes in the Bible, right? You see the
Throne room
throne of God
scenes,
in
yeah.
Ezekiel 1, Isaiah 6, Daniel 7, and Revelation chapters 4 and 5. Here's Revelation 5, verse 11. John sees something similar. Then I looked and heard the voice of many what?
Angels.
Angels, right? Around the throne, the living creatures and the elders, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands. So now we get the same number, and it specifically identifies these creatures as angels, and then it adds thousands of thousands because you don't have millions and billions and trillions in the Bible. 1,000 is sort of the biggest unit that you get. So 10,000, hundreds, it's sort of the biggest unit that you get. And when it says 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands, that might be additional millions, right? It might be adding thousands or it might be multiplying by thousands. We don't really know, but I'll put it, this is a lot of angels. It's a lot of them. Yeah.
That makes me think, of course, of the second coming of Christ, because it's going to be really spectacular. Because Matthew 25:31 tells us that when Jesus does return, all the holy angels
Right.
are coming with him.
All 100 million
and so
plus.
every single one of them. And in Revelation 19, it shows Jesus coming back with the army of heaven, is how it describes
The angel and the angelic host, right?
Yeah. So if that means more than 100 million, I can't even begin to imagine what that would look like. How spectacular that's going to be.
Be pretty
Beautiful.
amazing. It's like, I think we bring that out on the night. I do this seminar on the book of Revelation. Revelation Speaks Peace. And the night we talk about the actual coming of Christ, we take a look at that. It's going to be the most glorious event in history. 100 million, maybe billions of angels all coming back. They all come back with Jesus.
All at once.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
So that's
Powerful.
what we got. There's lots of angels. That's what we know.
So what else do we have in the Bible that shows us about angels?
Well, we can talk a little bit about what they're actually like. And one of the first things that you'll notice in the Bible is how when angels show up, sometimes people kind of wilt when the angels they collapse.
Just
And,
one angel
Right. John
does
falls
that.
down in Revelation chapter 19. Their appearance has to be more than a little bit overwhelming. Let's look at a couple of passages. Maybe start with the scene at Jesus' tomb because it puts things in perspective. I mean, if we're going to talk about wilting in the presence of an angel, here's a spectacular example of that. Matthew 28, verse 2. And behold, there was a great earthquake. This is after the death of Jesus and the resurrection. For an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat on it. His countenance was like lightning. Now you're going to see that concept show up again.
Right.
Angel's appearance is like lightning. And his clothing white as snow, and the guards shook for fear of him and became like dead men. Now, got to remember, these men who fainted, and basically says they passed out at the sight of the angel, these are not some kind of beta males, right? Right? These are, you're laughing because you know what I'm going to, but they're not beta males. These aren't soy boys. Are we allowed to say soy boys on the?
I don't know. You just did.
All right. Write your complaint letters to Jean Boonstra, Box
please.
999, Loveland, Colorado. These are Roman soldiers. These are
They're
tough guys. Right? Yeah.
Traditional tough guys.
They don't flinch
Got
in the
it.
face of anything, and the presence of one angel made them pass out.
Right.
Kind of like I almost passed out in the delivery room when you were having our second child.
Yeah. True
Apparently,
story.
I am the beta male because I don't know, there's something about that whole thing that's not right. So, tough Roman soldiers wilt in the presence of an angel.
Wait. Something about childbirth that's not right?
Well, I think there was a good reason we put men out in the hallway to pace back and forth because as tough as I am, That was not a great day.
Okay, so there's something about you being in the room that's not right.
I don't want to see that.
Got it.
I don't want to see that again. That I'm still
the miracle of life.
Yeah,
Got
I'm
it.
still in counseling. I had to sit down at one point. All right, there's the truth. The truth is out there. I had to sit down at one point, okay?
Yeah, you did.
But I'm tough.
Yeah, got it.
But the Roman soldiers, they wilt in the presence of an angel.
And it's just one angel that did that. Imagine the impact of 100 million.
Yeah,
Shawn.
exactly. If one angel looks like lightning, and try to imagine looking at 100 million of them, right?
Yeah.
One lightning strike, if you're looking right at it, it's almost going to blind you. This is 100 million lightning strikes all at once. And speaking of lightning, if you want, let's take a look at another throne room scene. It's Ezekiel chapter 1. He has a vision where he says basically the same thing. This is verse 13 of Ezekiel chapter 1. As for the likeness of the living creatures, now, if you compare this chapter to chapter 10 of Ezekiel, it's obvious that these are cherubim. That's what he's describing.
Okay.
As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches going back and forth among the living creatures. The fire was bright, and out of the fire went lightning. And the living creatures ran back and forth in appearance like a flash of lightning. So again,
there it is again.
they look like lightning, and lightning is pretty hard to miss.
Definitely.
It's also an indication, perhaps, that angels bring light into the world, that they're revealing the glory of God. Because remember when Moses came down off the mountain after actually seeing God, everyone had to look away. His face was too bright.
Shining.
And here these angels are bringing messages from heaven. They live in the presence of God, and they're almost too bright to look at as well. So they look like lightning. Let's take a look at one more passage because it contains one more angel fact for the day.
Okay.
All right? So they look like lightning. They're glorious in appearance. Roman soldiers pass out in their presence. Psalm 103, verse 19. The Lord has established his throne in heaven, and his kingdom rules over all. Bless the Lord, you his angels who excel in what?
Strength.
In strength. So we have the fact that angels are impressive. They excel in strength. They're stronger than us. And then it continues, who excel in strength, who do his word, heeding the voice of his word.
Of his word.
Right.
So that raises the fact that angels exist as God's servants. They do his word. They serve him. They work for him. And they heed the voice of his word. So in the next verse, it calls them God's ministers.
Right.
Interesting.
And this seems to be their primary role. They live to do God's bidding.
Yeah.
They're God's servants. And as you read through the various angel appearances in the Bible, you find them saying things all the time like, God sent me here to talk to you, to deliver a message to you, to meet with you. They're emissaries from God. And we've already mentioned that. When we look at the Greek word agolos, it means messenger.
Yeah.
So they live to do God's bidding. One of my favorite examples of this is Daniel chapter 9.
Yeah.
Daniel's been praying because he doesn't understand this vision that he had back in Daniel chapter 8. So Gabriel, warrior of God, comes to explain it. And here's what he says in verse 22. And he, that's Gabriel, informed me and talked with me and said, I have now come forth to give you skill to understand. At the beginning of your supplications, the command went out, and I have come to tell you, for you are greatly beloved. Therefore, consider the matter and understand the vision. Yeah.
So it's a command that launched Gabriel's return to earth and not a suggestion, which does suggest that angels take orders from God.
Yeah, absolutely. They're God's messengers. They take orders. It's almost a military structure. I hear the sound of the music, though. That means it is time to take a little break. And we'll be right back. The truth about angels after this important message from the people at the Voice of Prophecy. Grab pen and paper. Write all of this down because we offer the most exciting opportunities to learn the Bible for yourself. You're listening to Disclosure. We'll be right back after this break.
Disclosure is just one of the programs brought to you by the Voice of Prophecy, like the audio adventure program Discovery Mountain. Discovery Mountain is a weekly Bible-based program for kids of all ages and backgrounds. Your family will enjoy faith-building stories with Jake Donovan, Mr. Simon, and others in this small mountain town. Each summer, campers visit Discovery Mountain, where they sing songs, learn about God, and reenact a Bible story with the help of drama teachers Miss Wendy and Miss Tamara. With 24 full episodes every year and programming every week, your family will have something uplifting to listen to every week. Listen to episodes on demand and watch video features from Director Doug at discoverymountain.com or on your favorite podcast platform. That's discoverymountain.com.
And we are back from that break. I see that you ran and got a Starburst in the break.
I did.
Is your blood sugar a little low?
I think it is.
I think the blood levels
the blood
up
draw.
to your... Yeah.
Maybe as I eat the Starburst, you'll see the
blood go
level
back up.
rising up to my hairline.
No, I don't think blood is made out of Starbursts. I don't think your dentist is going to appreciate this tactic.
Definitely
no,
not.
No.
Hopefully he's not
You're making a
listening.
decision today between blood and teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Which one do you want?
At the moment,
Yeah.
blood.
Maybe you shouldn't let them take so many vials.
Well,
They're
I don't
supposed to
know.
leave you some.
Following doctor's orders.
Yeah.
So.
All right, we're talking about angels. And a moment ago, Jean, you brought up Revelation chapter 19.
Right.
Jesus is leading the armies of heaven, and we were discussing the fact that they're God's servants and that they take commands from God. We looked at Daniel 9, where Gabriel says, I was told the command went out, is actually the expression Gabriel uses in Daniel 9:23.
Right.
I'm here because the command went out. So what we have is this posse, this cadre of created beings who live to do God's bidding almost in military fashion. They live to perform God's will, and the angels form the army of heaven. In fact, in Revelation chapter 12 and verse 7, you see this war in heaven where Michael and his angels fight against the dragon and his fallen angels.
Right.
So God's will seems to be all that angels do.
And part of doing God's will, it seems, is serving God's people.
Right. So they're a higher tier than us, but they serve us at God's command.
Right. At least that's implied from the way they convey messages from God to the prophets.
Yeah, exactly. And more than that, there are enough scripture passages to suggest the idea that guardian angels actually are a real thing. For the longest time, I thought, oh, this is another Victorian invention. Guardian angels are just more, well, they didn't have Hollywood in Victorian times, but they're a Hollywood invention. It's a story because you can't open your Bible and go to the index at the back and look up guardian angel. There is no expression in the Bible that says guardian angel.
Right.
But lo and behold, the concept of guardian angels absolutely is in the Bible.
Yeah, it is. I'm thinking of a couple of passages just right off the top of my head. There's Psalm 34, verse 7. The angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear him and delivers them.
Right, so angels assigned to God's people.
Right. And there are all kinds of examples of angels intervening to help God's people, like the time an angel came to release the apostles from prison. That's Acts chapter 5. Then again in Acts chapter 12, there's the night before Peter was supposed to be executed. You remember that?
Yep.
He's sleeping in prison. And then there's the statement Jesus made in Matthew 18, verse 10.
Yep.
It says this, take heed that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I say to you that in heaven their angels always see the face of my Father who is in heaven. So while it doesn't say it plainly, it clearly suggests that children might have personal angels assigned to them.
That's a pretty amazing thought if you're a parent,
Definitely.
right? That there's an angel assigned to children.
You know, it is an amazing thought, but it must also make it a little harder when someone does lose a child.
Right.
Because you've got to wrestle then with why didn't God use an angel to intervene that time?
To save my kid that time.
Yeah.
I know. And that kind of applies to any miracle.
That's true.
It's one of the things that makes me hesitant to pack a sermon full of too many miracle stories because while they absolutely do happen, I have seen the miraculous. I have seen things that cannot be explained by the laws of physics, instantaneous, miraculous events. I have seen them, but they don't happen every day.
Right.
And as Christians, we are faced with the fact that we're not going to understand everything until the day God invites us to go through the books of heaven. In Daniel 7, we saw the books open and angels looking at them. In Revelation chapter 20, it seems to indicate that you and I will also get our chance to look through the books of heaven. And it's only at that point that we're going to be fully satisfied about everything that has happened in our lives. But until then, we have to look forward by faith. And that can be hard sometimes. And we won't always understand, why didn't God intervene this time? Why wasn't there an angel that time? the good news is we're going to get an explanation. We will. Now, that does bring up another way that angels interact with people, because we do have examples in the Bible of people who were not delivered from hardship by the angels. And in those cases, angels were sent to do something else, not to deliver them, but to bring a sense of comfort.
Yeah, definitely. And the prime example I think of there is Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Exactly. That's probably the best example. Luke 22, verse 41. It says, "And he," that's Jesus, "was withdrawn from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and prayed, saying, Father, if it is your will." Now, that's an important statement for the context of this whole story. This story is about God's will being performed. So Jesus is asking for what he wants, but I want my Father's will to be done. Father, if it is your will, take this cup away from me. He doesn't want to go to the cross. I mean, who would? Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. Then it says in verse 43, an angel appeared to him from heaven, strengthening him.
Yeah.
And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. Then his sweat became like great drops of blood. So here we have this case where Jesus is faced with going to Calvary, going to the cross, and he's about to endure the most unbelievable suffering any human being will ever have to face, because it's not just the nails, it's the weight of the sins of the world being poured out on Jesus.
Right.
And he's not going to get out of this. This is the plan to save the human race. And he's come to the point where he's saying, Lord, if there's any other way, if there's a way for me to get out of this, please. But that's not going to happen. So instead of delivering him, God sends an angel to kind of mitigate the suffering, to give Jesus the strength to go through with it. And even after that, the Bible still says he's in agony to the point where he's literally sweating blood. Right.
Yeah. Which says a lot about the nature of Christ's sufferings. And it also goes to show that God has invested himself into our situation here on earth. It's not like he's an absentee landlord who can't identify with us. It's not like he didn't apply the same rules to himself when he lived here, right?
No.
He also had to experience suffering, disappointment, just like we do. And on this particular occasion, he also didn't get an angel to deliver him, because in the bigger picture, well, I mean, the whole human race would have been lost if Jesus hadn't gone through with it.
Yeah, and this is huge here. This tells us that Jesus subjected himself to the same rules we have to live by. Hebrews 4:15 tells us that we have this great high priest, that's Jesus in heaven, who is touched with the feeling of our infirmities because he's lived here. He's gone through this experience. And it's not like he got a get out of jail free card when he was here. He also went through something where he wasn't going to get delivered.
Yep.
So one of the tasks of angels is to protect God's people. And sometimes it is to give them the strength to go through what's about to happen. And I suppose on this side of the finish line, another good point is this. We really, we might think that the angels didn't come through for us, but we have no idea how many times angels have protected us without us even knowing that it happened.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that. That's a definite question I want to ask in heaven, is to see all the things that were avoided because of angels.
Yeah.
And you have an angel story, don't you?
I do. I think I remember when I've had miraculous help in my life. I remember when you and I lived way up north, and winters were very, very cold.
They were.
Yeah,
and
minus
long.
40 was nothing. Yeah. I remember we had a Chinook one winter. Now, if you don't know what a Chinook is, it's when a warm wind blows down off of the Rocky Mountains and kind of suddenly melts all the snow. And it's a relief. When it's 40 below outside, you get this hot wind that melts all the snow suddenly, and then it goes back to 40 below again a day or two later. But what happens is when it gets cold again, the road is wet, it freezes, and the road turns into this skating rink.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that had just happened one day. The Chinook had just happened, and it was refreezing, and I was driving down a steep road with lots of switchbacks, and suddenly my car started sliding for a huge drop-off on the left-hand side of the road. And I remember yelling, "Oh, no, Lord, please help." I mean, that's about all I could get out as the car sliding for this cliff. And suddenly the car actually started sliding the other way to the other side of the road, and boop, I went right into the forest backwards,
Yeah.
down this little slope into the trees. So I did not die, by falling down this precipice. But now I'm stuck in this deep snowdrift on the other edge of the road. So it's like, okay, God, that was very helpful. Thank you for sparing my life. But now I'm stuck here.
I'm stuck.
Right? So I tried everything to get that car up. It's going to get to be 40 below overnight. I do not want to spend the night in the woods.
No.
Who does? No. Right? 40 below. I was always ready, though. You know I was. I had candles and a sleeping bag and ready to spend the night there. But I'd prefer to get out. So I remember going and doing the usual. I went and got tree branches and I put them under the front wheels, the front wheel drive, and I tried rocking that thing. I would put one foot inside the car and hit the gas and rock the car back and forth. And I tried to do everything I could to get back up on the road, and nothing worked. And I did not want to spend the night in 40 below in the woods. So I actually remember sitting in the snow at one point. The front of my suit was all muddied because I've been rocking the car, and it would spin and throw mud and snow at my shirt, and back in the days when I wore white shirts. Big mistake.
And back when there were no cell phones, you couldn't just pick up a phone
and
call for help.
This is ancient history. There are no cell phones. Although up here, I don't know that cell phones would have worked in this spot anyway. Yeah. So I sat in the snow defeated, and I said, Lord, I'm going to need your help. I can't get this car out of this snowdrift, out of this ditch, and I need your help because I can't do this. And wouldn't you know it, right at that moment, the car, which was still in gear, suddenly drove itself up on the road. I mean, it drives itself up on the road. Now I have to chase it down the highway because it's driving away. Very slowly, but it's driving away. Yeah. And it blew my mind that happened. I remember actually looking at the back of the car to see if I could see handprints there because, look, there was no natural way that thing. I tried for hours to get that thing to go up the bank and up onto the road. I couldn't do it. Now it drives itself. Come on, man. No natural way it could have happened. So I have seen things happen. But at the same time, I always have to remind myself that Christians are called to make the ultimate sacrifice if need be. And angels aren't always going to deliver you.
Right.
They're not. Now, what I'm hoping is that when that time comes, that God will send them to do what they did for Jesus, to give me the strength to get through it, just like they did that night in Gethsemane.
Yeah.
It's not always going to spare me. There's a greater controversy going on. There are bigger issues than me and my well-being in this universe. And one of the things we do when we sign up for God's kingdom is we agree that we're also going to have to walk the path Jesus walked, that we're going to have to drain ourselves of self, walk the path that he walked, and that might mean going through our own Gethsemane and laying your life down on the line for the cause of the kingdom of God. And when that moment comes, I have to have trust that God will explain it to me someday. Here's why I didn't come through that day. And so I might not have all the answers. What would have happened if that night in the woods God didn't come through and I spent the night in the woods and let's say I died of exposure? As I'm going under, I'm going to have to accept that, okay, I wasn't going to get eternal life on this side of the second coming. And God must have a reason for allowing this. That if this is going to happen tonight, God's okay with it. I need to be okay with it. And I'll get all the answers when we get to heaven, Revelation chapter 20, and he opens the books. So angels perform a couple of tasks for us. Sometimes they intervene miraculously, like in those stories you pointed out, the night before Peter was going to be executed. Right?
He was sleeping.
Yeah, that one blows my mind. He can sleep when they're going to cut his head off in the morning, and I can't sleep in a bed.
Right.
But that night the angel delivers him. And sometimes the angel's going to be there to give you the strength to go through a tough moment because we are still on this side of glory. We are still in a fallen world where bad things happen. And God's people are not exempt from the bad things that happen here.
No.
The prosperity preachers are lying a little bit, saying, oh, it's going to be easy street if you follow Jesus. No. Jesus said it means picking up a cross and following him.
And there's often a lot of personal growth and growing closer to him in those difficult times.
Yeah, there absolutely is. So we're talking about angels, the truth about angels, and we are never going to get to the end of the subject, isn't it? This is like the music is playing. That means we're at the end of segment 3. And as usual, because you were so talkative, you just filled up all the time.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Look, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back with the truth about angels and whatever else we can squeeze out of the last segment. My name is Shawn Boonstra. You're listening to Disclosure from the Voice of Prophecy. We'll be right back after this.
Are you searching for answers to life's toughest questions? Like, where is God when we suffer? Can I find real happiness? Does my life really matter to God? Or is there any hope for our chaotic world? the Discover Bible Guides will help you find the answers that you're looking for. Visit us at BibleStudies.com or give us a call at 888-456-7933 for your free Discover Bible Guides. Study online on our secure website or have the free guides mailed right to your home. There is never a cost or obligation. The Discover Bible Guides are our free gift to you. Find answers in guides like A Second Chance at Life. You'll find answers to the things that matter the most to you. Visit BibleStudies.com and begin your journey today to discover answers to life's deepest questions.
And we are back from the break. In the break, we heard about Discovery Mountain.
We did.
Yeah, and actually, right now while we're in studio, as soon as this is done, they're rearranging the studio for another episode of Discovery Mountain.
Yes, it's our audio program for kids.
Right, where can you get that?
The easiest way to find it and listen to it is at discoverymountain.com.
Okay.
But it's on you can find it at VOP.com too, where you may be listening to Disclosure right now. And it's on all the major podcast platforms as well.
And I noticed that this season I have 0 lines.
You had lines.
I
You
have
had
0
lines.
lines. I didn't have any lines.
Yes, you did. Remember, you did them last week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I did record some lines last week for Discovery Mountain.
You did.
But I have, I'm not even a B-list character. I'm a Q-list or Z-list character.
You're a recurring character.
A recurring character with 3 lines per season. I am Chaplain Simon, in case you've got young people wondering, well, who do you play? I'm Chaplain Simon.
That's right.
Yeah, who gets shipped off to Afghanistan all the time
you're so
that
busy,
you can
that's
kill me out of
why.
the show. That's what's going to happen. Yep.
That's not
No, there's going to be like this Scud missile that lands on Chaplain Simon and it's all over.
No, I'm not doing that to the kids who are listening.
No. Whatever happened to Scud missiles? That's a thing of the past. Remember the first Gulf War? It was...
we don't hear about Scud
I can't remember the
missiles
guy's
now, do we?
name. Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein had Scud missiles. And that's what's going to happen to Chaplain Simon.
No,
Boom.
I don't think so. We like him. We're going to keep him
Yeah,
around.
it'll be this episode of Discovery Mountain. Hey, kids, got bad news for you. What is it? Remember Scud missiles? Yeah? Yeah, Chaplain Simon sort of met one.
No, I'm not going to ask you to help me write any Discovery Mountain episodes just for that reason.
All right, just a little hint, though. What is Season 9 all about?
Season 9 is all about the parable of the sower.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
Yeah,
And
excellent
how come
one.
I have a bit part?
Well, because you're over in Afghanistan, that's why.
Where was I? I landed in Australia a while ago, and somebody pointed out to the children in this audience, oh, this guy is with Discovery Mountain, and the kids are all, yay, we love Discovery Mountain.
That's cool.
And they came and asked, so who do you play? Are you Jake? Are you... no, I'm Chaplain Simon. And the kids all said, oh, and walked away.
And they were disappointed.
They walked away.
Aw, that's
Yeah.
too bad. Well, if you were around more, we can definitely create more lines for Chaplain Simon.
Yeah, and I want awesome lines.
Okay.
Manly lines.
Manly lines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. We're talking about angels, though. That is our subject for today, not actually Discovery Mountain. If you've got young people, though, I would recommend you go to discoverymountain.com and grab an episode of it.
That's great.
And you
Yeah,
just
kind of
steadied
feel
yourself.
a little woozy.
No, and the blood level's back up to your eyebrows now.
That's good. That's
but
good.
your brain still doesn't have any blood.
Probably
No,
not.
it'll come back.
I think it's not all firing correctly. It would be fun to have an angel story in Discovery Mountain sometime.
We should put an angel story in there.
That's something that kids are naturally curious about, and it would be really neat to study straight from the Bible what the Bible says about angels, just like we're doing here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about angels, and we talked about the fact that sometimes angels are sent to deliver people, like the story of Peter being delivered the night before, and an army of angels for the prophet Elisha when the Syrians are coming to get him, and so on. But other times there is no delivery, there is no deliverance.
Right.
And so in those cases, like Jesus in Gethsemane, because there is a bigger picture going on behind the scenes, sometimes God sends angels then to strengthen you to get through what you're about to endure.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this time, somebody once asked the great preacher Charles Spurgeon, hey, if it came down to it, do you think you could burn at the stake for your faith? And Spurgeon said, no, I can't burn at the stake for my faith. And I felt good about reading that statement. I thought, well, neither do I. I'm not exactly lining up for that. I mean, I've burnt my hand before, and that wasn't great. Burn your whole body. But then Spurgeon said this. He said, but if that moment came I'm sure God would give me the strength to endure it.
That's the difference right there.
That is. And so that's one of the roles of angels as well. I know God will send them to give me the strength if it comes right down to it, just like they did for Jesus.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and Shawn, now I'm thinking about the story of Job, because he had to endure a lot of things that the devil heaped on him. And God didn't intervene in those cases either.
Yeah. Yes. No, he didn't. And yes, he did. But you're right. You know, here's what God did. He didn't stop it, but he did draw a line in the sand. He said, look, Satan, I'm going to let you do this, but here's the line. You can't go any further than this. In the beginning, all right, you're going to cause him this harm, but you don't touch his person. And then later on, you can touch his person, but you can't kill him. And that implies there may have been angels standing wherever that line was to keep Satan from going all the way. And you'll notice in that story, God says, hey, he's in your hands. That's an important line, too. That tells us who the source of suffering is. Satan is demanding access to Job, and God says he's in your hands. And in the beginning of the story, you remember, Satan is complaining in Job 1, verse 10. God, you put a hedge around Job.
Right, like it was unfair.
Right. But that might imply the devil can't get to him because he's protected. You brought, the angel of the Lord encamps around the camp of the saints. What if he had angels that were surrounding him, keeping the devil from doing what the devil wanted to do? So, yeah, angels protect God's people, and when the time comes that we're required to pass through pain and hardship, they are there to bring us strength and comforting. Just this morning, as I was, reading my Bible for my own morning devotions, I was reading Zechariah chapter 1, where in verse 13 it says that one of the roles of an angel is to pass on good and comforting words to God's people. So that's not deliverance, but good and comforting words. And in that case, they're facing the challenge of rebuilding the temple after Babylonian captivity, and all the forces in the world are arraigned against them, and God sends them messages of comfort that are passed along through an angel.
Very nice. I like that. And the Bible also seems to indicate that angels are involved in bringing people to Christ. Don't you love that? That they're just as interested, maybe more interested, in the work of the gospel as we are.
Yeah, that's true. You got to think about this. They've been witness to the entire controversy that's raging in this universe. Revelation chapter 12 indicates that fallen angels were cast out of heaven, that Lucifer was spreading lies in heaven, that he wanted to sit on the throne of God, that he was trying to discredit God's government. And so you've got to imagine the angels who remain behind, because they're not mindless robots, they probably have some questions too. And the Bible indicates that they're greatly interested in God's plan to redeem the fallen human race who were deceived into following these fallen angels. So you've got Acts chapter 8, this story where an angel tells Philip, hey, Philip, you are so late for your Bible study. We've got this Ethiopian...
I love that story.
Do you? Yeah. I've got this Ethiopian treasurer, this eunuch. He's in his chariot. He's halfway through the book of Isaiah. You got to get down there and finish this Bible study. So an angel, I don't know. I always read that like the angels are almost a little frustrated. Like, Philip, aren't you paying attention?
Yeah, you're supposed to be here. Come on.
That's not in the story. No. Don't take me to task for my exegesis. It's just my fun little way of reading it. And
well, it just shows how events are not random and haphazard.
Right.
That things happen as they are supposed to happen. There's a bigger plan, a bigger purpose behind things.
So here we have this angel who's very interested in the salvation of this Ethiopian eunuch.
Yes.
And he's coordinating the events that need to take place, right? Yeah. They're in the background, God's servants making this happen. Acts chapter 10, another great example. An angel appears to Cornelius.
Oh, right.
Roman soldier. And he tells him, look, Cornelius, send your men to find Peter in the city of Joppa so that you can accept Christ, so you can learn what the gospel is. So again, you have an angel who's coordinating things in the background.
And in Hebrews 1, verse 14, the Bible tells us specifically that one of the jobs of angels is to be sent forth to minister for those who will inherit salvation.
Now, that is one of my favorite passages. I love that one. I've actually pointed to that one when I'm praying for people. You know that I've also been a public evangelist over the years. I preach the gospel publicly in city after city. And I've actually pointed to that verse in Hebrews 11 and Hebrews 1 rather, in verse 14, when I'm working with people. And I have asked God to send angels to people's homes to intervene because, look, I'm not getting anywhere with this guy. He's so stubborn, and I know he's under conviction. His head sinks when he hears about the gospel. I know he feels sorrow for his sins, but he's just not not doing anything. And so I'll pray that prayer. That verse that you're talking about, Hebrews chapter 1. Let me just open up to it here.
Verse 14.
Yeah, Hebrews 1 and verse 14.
And you've seen some pretty amazing results from that, haven't you? From praying like that.
Yeah, I have. Here it is. Let me see here. Hebrews 1:14. Oh, I'm in the book of Titus. I thought, hey, somebody rewrote Hebrews. It's not where it's supposed to be. And I was reading Titus. Oh, here it is. Are they, not speaking of angels, are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for those who will inherit salvation?
Right.
And so I've prayed this prayer. Lord, this guy, you want him to inherit salvation. You are not willing that any should perish. And I've literally pointed to that verse. And I remember one case. This guy was being so stubborn about accepting God in his life, about accepting the gift of salvation, and I couldn't pin down what was holding him back. And so I remember opening my Bible at about 2 o'clock in the morning and reading that verse. And I said, Lord, he's supposed to be an heir of salvation. He's supposed to inherit the kingdom along with, you want him in the kingdom. And it says the angels are supposed to work with him. So I'm going to go to sleep now. And I want you to send angels to his house and let him lay awake over this. Why am I laying awake over this?
Wow.
So I see this guy the next day, and he looks awful. I mean, he looks awful. And I tell him, you look terrible, man. He says, I feel terrible. He had bags under his eyes, and his eyes were red. And I said, well, what happened? He said, I woke up at 2 o'clock this morning.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I tossed and turned all night. I've been wrestling with God and what I need to do to make things right with God. So, yep. Angels are working in the background to make sure that the human race gets into the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah. Making sure we arrive at the right places at the right time, and all those details for the meeting of people who have something to share with us, which will change what we choose, change our future, change eternity for us.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, you and I came to the Lord at the same time. We were baptized on the same day.
At the same moment.
At the same moment. Actually, both of us on the same arm. The pastor was a great big guy, 6'7". He was huge, and put us both on one arm and put us under the water together because we were already engaged to be married.
Pastor Don Stoyanowski.
Yeah, Pastor Don. Yeah.
Love him.
Yeah, I love him too. And now in hindsight, I look back and you look at your life from your very earliest memories all the way up to the moment where you become a part of God's kingdom. You become a part of God's church. And in hindsight, you can start to see it, can't you?
Yes, absolutely.
That God is coordinating things. I mean, my angel must be so frustrated because looking in hindsight, I can see hundreds of examples where God was clearly trying to get my attention, but I was too thick to see it or too stubborn to admit it.
Sure.
You're smiling. That's probably what was happening. I was too stubborn to admit it. But in hindsight, I can see it. So let me issue this challenge out there today because we are out of time. You have heard the name of Jesus for years. You have felt something in your heart from time to time. Angels of God, the Bible teaches, have been working in your home. As you look back, you can see the moments where God has been trying to get your attention. And my question to you is this. Why frustrate them anymore? What reason could you possibly have to say no to the gift of salvation, to say no to the gift of the kingdom of heaven, when you know that God has put all of his resources, his angelic armies at your disposal to make sure that you make it? Angels of God are working day and night to see you come into the kingdom of heaven. Why throw that gift away? I say it's time to accept Christ and to do it now, because the Bible says not only does Jesus sing, I believe the choirs of angels sing when you do make that decision. All of heaven rejoices. Jesus taught that in his parables, that there's a great party when somebody comes to Jesus. And so you can literally make angels sing by making the right decision today. I hear the music, Jean. Again, you talk too much. You filled up all the time, and the blood is all the way up to your scalp now. You're feeling a little bit better.
I'm good.
Until next time, this has been Disclosure. I'm Shawn Boonstra. Thanks for listening.